How do you store your saws? I've got a problem with the way that I store mine. Historically, I have put them up like so, and that has been sufficient. But as you can see, I don't have a space big enough for all of the Japanese hand saws that I've accumulated. So I need to come up with another solution. So what I've decided is, sticking with the walnut theme here, instead of hanging them on screws, instead I'm going to use magnets. Now I've picked up on Amazon magnets, and I've got a string of them here that I'm going to dado in to this piece of walnut and hang it on the French cleat. Now, once these are dadoed in, I can just put a saw right up against the piece of walnut here. It will be magnetically held. I can just pull it directly off without any type of a problem. And as my collection grows or shrinks, I will have plenty of room. I've sized this out so that it will not only fit all of the saws that I do still currently have, but another one or two. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, let's start making a dado cut. All right, so what I'm about ready to do here is change out the blade. Right now I have a 42 tooth Forest thin kerf blade in there. I also use quite often a plywood blade, but what I'm going to be switching out to right now is going to be a flat tooth blade, a standard kerf width. And a flat tooth blade is really ideal for whenever you're trying to do rabbets or dados, just because it leaves a very smooth surface at the bottom of the face of the groove that you're trying to create in either the dado or the rabbet. So right now I'm just making sure I have it affixed in properly, tightened in so it doesn't become a projectile. And that's good. Just make sure I put that in there, get it all smooth, make sure it's flat. All right, right now I'm going to make sure that, so that's the piece of walnut that I have, the work piece. And I got to make sure that I set the blade height correctly. So the best way to do that I can think of is to actually use the piece that I'm going to be placing in, which is the magnet. So I set the blade height to the magnet thickness, and now I have the fence set to the offset. And I'm just going to run it on through. You're not going to watch me do the entire dado, do the multiple cuts, but normally, well, not normally, every single time. This takes multiple passes, and you take incremental passes, you know, moving the fence slightly over and over and over again, so that ultimately you end up getting the width of cut proper to the piece that you're trying to insert into the groove, which would be my magnet. Right there, I was just making sure that I had the depth of cut proper, and it looks like that it is. As you can see there, I actually have a really nice tight fit, so everything worked out really, really well. So what I'm going to do right now is just make sure that the length of the chain of magnets that I have is going to work properly for the length of board that I have. And I'm sure you noticed right there, I have the magnets placed in opposite polarity because these things are aggressive. Like, you're going to watch here momentarily just how aggressive they are. Like, they repel one another, and then in opposite attraction or same side attraction, like right here, they are drawn to one another like crazy. Like crazy. Watch this real quick. Watch this. That like flew away. Um, so I learned a big lesson right there. Like, these things need to be held down. Um, and so right now what I'm doing is I'm pre-drilling a hole into the walnut so that the screws have a place to go, just blowing out any of the excess dirt. Now, I did not move, by the way. I did not move that magnet away. That pushed itself away. So I'm a little scared of these things at the moment, because what I'm going to actually also learn throughout this process is whenever they do smash together, these things are brittle. Like, they smash together violently, and they're brittle. So, but anyhow, you're going to watch me drill a bunch of holes. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but we're going to be countersinking a lot of holes. I did see, though, a problem, as you can see that I'm trying to rectify right now. Once I started putting the magnets in, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to sand the piece without stripping the paint off of all the magnets. So I removed those two magnets that I had initially placed in there. Fortunately, I didn't do too many. And right now I'm doing 180 grit, and I did quite a few more passes than you watched. And now I'm doing 220 grit, just to make sure that everything's going to be smooth and ready for finish whenever I'm done. Much more sanding occurred than you're going to watch. And you're welcome, because sanding is boring. Even I don't like it. All right, so back to the task at hand. I'd already countersunk and pre-drilled those two. So I'm going to just quickly, carefully push those in, get the screws back in there, and resume the mission. Got my countersink bit back in, and I'm going to carefully put the magnet into the dado slot, countersink, boom. See that? See that magnet just push itself away? These things are aggressive. To minimize the amount of drilling on a single stage, I'm actually alternating holes here. I don't know if you're going to notice, but I drill one hole, put a screw in, put the next magnet in, pre-drill one hole, put in one screw, and then just move down the line. And then at the end, I'm going to pre-drill the other holes on the other side of each magnet and then drill those in. I, for whatever reason, just thought this would be faster. I don't know if it's any faster, but that's what I decided to do. So as you see there, the carnage, look at all the broken pieces from the magnets smashing together. Watch this. Boom. Oh yeah, see that recoil? It was like startling. Now I'm compiling all of the carnage here. I'm trying to separate and trying to figure out what good ones I have, and I'm like, where do I put these? So I put that. I was like, that one goes way over there. I'm just going to put the debris pile over here. As you see there, I did thankfully have more magnets. Um, I'm glad I didn't buy exactly what I thought that I was going to need. I have some extras. So back to drilling holes, as I promised you that I was going to do. I knew I would deliver. Here's more holes. I'm going to do another one. Pre-drill. And another screw. This is much of what woodworking is repetition. Just doing the same thing over and over and over again, hoping for repeatability, hoping that everything works out well. I will say, though, it is cathartic, and the monotony of it all just allows you to just get right into a mindset. So as you're seeing right there, the magnets came in these sleeves, and when I first arrived in the sleeves, you see, I have to push them out of these sleeves. I was like, what are these sleeves for? I was like, I'm not going to use these sleeves. These things are dumb. And then I realized after the carnage pile you see there in the foreground off to the right, they put them in the sleeves so that they wouldn't have every person who bought their product return it, because they all eviscerated each other through collisions. So this is just going to be me now pushing off the sleeves and carefully trying to get them safely inside of the groove there. Once they're in the groove, I'm not worried about it. But now I'm like, every single time I pull one of these magnets out of the sleeve, I treat it like a Fabergé egg. Um, More screws. more pushing magnets out of sleeves. I was really happy with how tight I made that groove. I mean, there is like no space, no wiggle room. They slide in perfectly, but there's no extra room. So it's a super tight fit, and that's exactly what you want. And as I promised, I was going to attend to all of the holes on the other side of the magnets so that there is a screw on both sides. And putting them all in now. Yeah, that's smooth. And I'm going to do a French cleat system here for this. That's a pre-cut French cleat that I had laying around. As you can see in the background, I have a French cleat wall. Kind of got a theme going on here. And so I made a bunch of extra French cleats for future projects, and I'm just cutting it to length for this project. I'm just going to make sure that my measurements were good. Make sure I have a good offset, and wouldn't you know, it's like I know what I'm doing. I like Danish oil. As you see, I'm going to use it on this project. I use Danish oil quite often. Although I will say, after I did the Danish oil, I did not film it, but I did put a coat of Wipe-On Poly on top of the Danish oil after the Danish oil cured, just to give it a little bit more sheen. I don't really need it. You didn't really need it, but I just thought because of the teeth of the blade, as I put them up there over multiple times, it is true that polyurethane has much more wear resistance than bare wood or Danish oil. And so it didn't need it, but the Wipe-On Poly that I put on after this Danish oil cured, I told myself, whether true or not, it would give it a little bit more luster. I did use a satin, but on top of that, if the little fine teeth of each of these saw blades over the course of years rub and rub and rub and rub and rub on the walnut, I think that the polyurethane would just be a little bit more durable. And so that's what I did. And right now I'm just making sure that all the spots where the walnut soaked in Danish oil, I'm just reapplying a little bit more. Wood it has a disparate amount of density per inch, right? So not every segment of a board is as dense or porous as the next. And so whenever you apply some of these things, certain areas will soak up, whether it's stain or finish, much more quickly than others. And so you just have to kind of go over it. All right, I guess in the editing process, we're done with finishing. We're now on to the next step. So right now I am affixing the French cleat to the back of our project, which is essential to do if I want to put it on the wall. And I did, as you see there, have a drill bit with painter's tape to get the right depth. And I'm using, I think those are like 1-inch screws or 1 1/4-inch screws. And you're not going to see me do this in this video, but all these holes I did end up countersinking, so that the screws would fit kind of inside, deeper into that piece of plywood, sink a little bit further into the walnut, and just putting a little bit of force there, make sure that I got a good connection. I don't know why I didn't clamp these two together, but because I didn't, I thought body weight would be the clamp, which in the end it worked. Although I generally do think it's a good idea to clamp two pieces together before screwing them, so there's not like a gap in between the two pieces. Ideally, typically the screws will pull the two pieces together, but that actually does not always happen. So pressure it is. All right, just looking to see there. I think this is looking good. The saw holder has been completed. I'm pretty pleased with the way that it turned out. It wasn't a complicated project. It was pretty straightforward. It's just taking a simple board, routing or dadoing in several magnets and then hanging it on the French cleat. Really a pretty fast, easy project, but it makes a big impact on the way that I use this space. Initially, I just had 3 of these types of saws that I was using, and then progressively I would get another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then they would just lay here on the workbench, and it would just clutter. And everybody knows that a horizontal space tends to just accumulate stuff and accumulate tools, parts from a project, and I'd come over here to work, and then I'd have to, before I could get going, I would have to move things around to another spot, and it just completely messes up the workflow. Plus, a tidy workspace, I think, is something that once you see that everything has a place and everything is orderly, it puts you in a mindset to be creative, to be productive. And I'm really pleased with the way that it turned out. I could put these closer together and add a couple. I could space them apart. This has been a fun project, a really simple project. It didn't take me very long. Thank you so much for tuning in, and God bless. I hope to see you around next time. Thanks so much.